Adam Silver is forced to speak out against Cathy Engelbert and the current dismemberment of her relationship with her players.
The WNBA is officially in panic mode. What started as quiet tension behind closed doors has exploded into a full-blown crisis that now threatens the entire league's future. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert's leadership is being questioned by players, coaches, and even the media. And when that happens, there's only one person left to call: NBA Commissioner Adam Silver.
This whole Cathy situation is getting ugly. First thing Monday morning, we get a response from Adam Silver. Now, Adam Silver is pretty much like the daddy of it all. I know he got a hell of a job. He got to worry about LeBron and Bronny. He got to worry about keeping his league afloat. They ratings tanking too. Now he got to deal with Cathy mismanagement of the WNBA.
After weeks of public backlash, stalled negotiations, and rumors of a lockout, Silver has finally stepped in to take control before the league collapses. His intervention isn't just damage control, it's a rescue mission. Reports say that NBA is now directly involved in stabilizing operations and pushing for emergency agreements. But the real question remains: can Adam Silver actually save the WNBA from total shutdown? Or is he stepping into a mess that's already too far gone to fix?
I think we can all be honest here. Shit's gonna get done. Shit's gonna get done. It is going to get done. We know that. We all know that, which is the way that the NBA works.
The WNBA had been teetering on the edge for months, but insiders say the tension finally snapped during a string of heated meetings between players and league executives. The Players' Union had already triggered the opt-out clause of their collective bargaining agreement, setting an early expiration date for October 2025, and with that decision, the countdown to chaos began.
Now, the way it's looking, might not be no 2026 season. And just like I stated, Cathy whole relationship situation is not good at all. They could put in there that Cathy got to step down before they sign anything, which would be ugly for the league. But hell, at this point, I can't blame them. Cathy can't be trusted, and she definitely got to go.
What was supposed to be a negotiation turned into an out standoff. Players accused Commissioner Cathy Engelbert of ignoring their concerns, failing to protect them from poor officiating, and mishandling public controversies that drove fans away. The result was simple but devastating: total distrust by the time the WNBA Finals tipped off. The league's off-court issues had overshadowed its biggest games. Empty seats told the story better than any press release. Fans weren't showing up, and even casual supporters began to wonder if the league would survive the year. Then came the final straw. Reports surfaced that several star players were considering refusing to play under Engelbert's leadership next season unless major changes were made. That included talk of a potential strike, a move that could cancel the entire 2026 season if unresolved.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, on the heels of several prominent WNBA players' criticism, league Commissioner Cathy for lack of accountability and leadership, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver on Monday added his voice on the decision. In remarks made on October the 6th at NBC Sports headquarters, Adam Silver acknowledged the WNBA is experiencing growing pains. Whoa, he's saying growing pains.
For the NBA, that was unacceptable. Behind the scenes, Adam Silver had been monitoring everything. As the head of the NBA, which owns and financially supports the WNBA, he couldn't allow another leadership meltdown. Sources close to the situation say Silver had warned Engelbert privately months earlier to rebuild player trust and modernize the league's operations. But after she publicly brushed off criticism, claiming the league was in its strongest era, Silver realized it was time to act.
With this unprecedented popularity colliding with rampant player dissatisfaction just ahead of the expiration of its collective bargaining agreement at the end of the month. And just like I told y'all earlier today, this whole collective bargaining, this is the month, man. We gonna find out this month whether or not there's going to be some type of situation with this league that will be going on a lockout.
When he stepped to the podium in New York, he didn't mince words. Calling the situation growing pains, Silver tried to keep things diplomatic, but his tone carried a clear message. The WNBA was on thin ice, and the NBA was watching closely. He acknowledged the progress under Engelbert's tenure, but made it clear that relationship issues and player satisfaction were now top priorities. That subtle shift of language sent a message across the sports world. Adam Silver had taken control of the crisis, and Cathy Engelbert's days of unchecked leadership might be numbered.
Cathy should just own up and step down. I believe that's what should happen. Cathy need to just walk away. We're going off into the sunset. Well, the half-bright sunset, I should say, because it ain't going to be a good goodbye. But I feel like at this point, she going to have to step down.
Silver's decision to intervene wasn't just about saving face. It was about protecting billions in media rights, sponsorships, and the reputation of professional women's basketball. The NBA had invested heavily in the WNBA's growth, especially with the arrival of Caitlyn Clark, whose popularity had sparked record ratings and ticket sales. Watching that momentum vanish because of poor leadership was not an option. Still, the move left everyone asking if Adam Silver has to step in to keep the WNBA from falling apart. What does that say about the person who was supposed to be running it in the first place?
Adam Silver goes on to say, I wish I could find audio of this. We will get a deal done with the players, Silver stated empathetically. Lots of work left to be done, but will, of course, get a new collective bargaining agreement.
Just when fans thought things couldn't get worse, Cathy Engelbert poured gasoline on an already burning situation. During a Friday afternoon press conference intended to calm fears of a looming lockout, the WNBA commissioner instead made one of the most tone-deaf statements of her tenure, with cameras rolling and reporters pressing for answers. Engelbert insisted that she was here to stay and brushed off growing criticism as media noise. Those two words sent shockwaves through the league. Players felt dismissed, fans felt unheard, and even longtime WNBA supporters began questioning whether Engelbert truly understood the gravity of what was happening. That moment didn't just expose poor leadership, it exposed a widening gap between the league office and its players. Reports quickly spread that several player representatives were blindsided by her comments, claiming they hadn't been consulted or even briefed before her public remarks. Inside sources revealed that communication between Engelbert and the Players' Union had virtually collapsed, with multiple calls and emails allegedly going unanswered. What was supposed to be a show of strength came across as arrogance, and it only fueled talk that Engelbert had lost control of her locker rooms and her boardrooms alike. The reaction from media personalities was swift and unforgiving. Analysts on ESPN and local outlets openly questioned how the WNBA could claim historic growth when its finals were struggling to fill seats and viewership had dropped after the Olympic controversy. Even NBA insiders began speaking anonymously about frustration with Engelbert's public image management. Her refusal to acknowledge mistakes, especially her handling of Caitlyn Clark's Olympic snub and ongoing officiating scandals, became symbolic of deeper problems in the league. Behind closed doors, players were furious. Star veterans reportedly began discussing a united stand to pressure the commissioner out. Rookie phenoms, meanwhile, started to wonder if the league they had joined would even exist by the time their first contracts expired. It wasn't just frustration, it was fear. The kind of fear that forces leadership change. Adam Silver's office immediately took notice. According to insiders, Silver was informed within hours of the press conference that Engelbert's remarks had caused internal panic. The NBA's legal and communications teams were reportedly briefed on potential scenarios, including emergency oversight, replacement discussions, and a temporary commissioner plan if things spiraled. The WNBA's credibility had now become an NBA problem. From that moment, the narrative shifted. Engelbert was no longer the face of progress she once claimed to be. Instead, she had become the embodiment of disconnection, a leader out of touch with her players and out of sync with the fans who carried the league. Her press conference was meant to assert confidence, but it only made one thing clear: the WNBA was spiraling toward disaster, and the only person capable of pulling it back was already waiting in the wings: Adam Silver. As the dust settled from Engelbert's disastrous press conference, another storm was quietly forming behind closed doors. The collective bargaining negotiations. What had started as routine talks had turned into a tense battle of control. The WNBA Players Association, already frustrated with low salaries, travel conditions, and lack of transparency, decided to push back hard. They had one clear message for the commissioner: no more empty promises. The players were done waiting for real change, and if that meant shutting down the entire league, so be it. The key issue was trust, or rather, the total collapse of it. Players felt betrayed after years of hearing about growth, while seeing little progress in their day-to-day experience. Private charter flights were still rare. Marketing dollars were unevenly distributed. Some teams had world-class facilities, while others practiced in borrowed gyms. And as one player reportedly said, "We can't play for a league that doesn't play for us." That quote spread fast, igniting fan debate and forcing the media to cover what was really happening. The WNBA was heading toward a lockout. By early October, the league's collective bargaining agreement was set to expire within months, and the two sides were miles apart. Engelbert tried to project confidence, claiming the process was healthy and ongoing, but few believed her. The players' union wanted guarantees, better pay, medical support, and more control over media rights. Meanwhile, the league's leadership seemed focused on optics, not solutions. The tension grew unbearable. Rumors even suggested that a group of veteran players led by Nafisa Collier and Aja Wilson were exploring alternative leagues, including Collier's own unrivaled project as leverage. For the first time, the idea of a rival women's basketball league didn't sound impossible. That's when Adam Silver stepped in. Having seen how destructive lockouts were to the NBA in the past, he recognized the same warning signs flashing red in the WNBA. Sources claim he convened a private emergency meeting with both the NBA and WNBA boards to assess the damage. Silver made it clear that a lockout wasn't just a women's basketball problem. It was a brand problem for the entire basketball world. The NBA's credibility, the WNBA's survival, and even future media deals were all intertwined. A shutdown could destroy everything the league had built over 2 decades. Silver's message was simple: fix it or lose it. Insiders described his tone as measured but final. The WNBA needed to restore player trust before negotiations completely collapsed. But with Engelbert refusing to step aside and players doubling down, the situation grew more volatile by the day. It was no longer just about a contract. It was about leadership, loyalty, and whether the league could survive without tearing itself apart. And as Halloween approached the deadline for the CBA, fans couldn't help but wonder if the WNBA was already living its own nightmare. After weeks of chaos, Adam Silver finally stepped into the spotlight, and his words hit harder than anyone expected. Standing at the NBC Sports headquarters, the NBA commissioner addressed the growing unrest within the WNBA for the first time. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned forward, and every player in the league waited to hear whether their future was safe. Silver began calmly, describing the turmoil as growing pains, a phrase that on the surface sounded gentle but carried a deeper meaning. It was his way of acknowledging the disaster, without publicly embarrassing Cathy Engelbert, yet everyone could sense the warning hidden. Beneath the diplomacy, Silver went on to highlight the league's historic growth under Engelbert's leadership, pointing to increased sponsorships and television ratings. But his tone shifted quickly. He admitted there were relationship issues between the league and its players that needed to be addressed. That one sentence changed everything. It was the first time anyone from the NBA publicly recognized that the real crisis wasn't financial, it was personal. The trust between players and leadership had fractured, and the NBA was now openly involved in fixing it. To the average viewer, it sounded like routine commissioner speak, but to insiders, it was a clear signal. Silver was asserting quiet control. Multiple reports later confirmed that the NBA had begun overseeing parts of the WNBA's labor negotiations, guiding the process to prevent a total shutdown. In other words, Silver wasn't just commenting, he was taking over. The WNBA had effectively become an extension of the NBA's crisis management department. His remarks also revealed something else: frustration. Silver, known for his patience and professionalism, was now being forced to clean up a mess that should never have existed. He recognized the WNBA's potential, boosted by the rise of Caitlyn Clark and a new generation of marketable stars, but saw how fragile that success was under Engelbert's leadership. Every mistake she made, from public missteps to internal mismanagement, had chipped away at the league's credibility. Now, Silver was trying to prevent those cracks from turning into a collapse. After his statement, the headlines exploded. Some praised Silver for stepping up, calling him the savior of women's basketball. Others criticized him for protecting Engelbert instead of holding her accountable. Social media erupted with debates over whether the NBA should permanently take control of the WNBA's operations. But one thing was certain: his intervention had reignited hope among players. For the first time in months, there was a sense that someone powerful was finally listening. Still, Silver's calm words couldn't hide the reality. Behind the scenes, the relationship between the commissioners was reportedly strained. Engelbert felt undermined, and Silver's growing influence threatened to expose just how unstable the WNBA had become. The press conference may have reassured the public, but it also confirmed one chilling truth: the league was no longer under Engelbert's control. At first glance, Adam Silver's praise for Cathy Engelbert sounded diplomatic, even supportive. He commended her for overseeing historic growth, pointing to record sponsorships, expanded media coverage, and a spike in interest following Caitlyn Clark's debut season. But those who have followed Silver's leadership style knew better. He doesn't waste words, and every compliment has a purpose. To the trained ear, his praise was laced with warning. When he followed that statement by stressing the need to address relationship issues with players, it was clear he was drawing a line between progress and failure. It was his subtle way of saying, "You may have built momentum, but you've also broken trust." The moment replayed endlessly across sports networks. Analysts dissected his phrasing, calling it a diplomatic dagger. Silver had essentially confirmed what insiders already believed: that Engelbert's inability to connect with her players had become a liability. Instead of defending her outright, he framed her success as partial and conditional, giving the NBA flexibility to move in if she couldn't fix things fast. Behind closed doors, that message landed like a warning shot. Several league executives reportedly interpreted it as Silver signaling readiness to make leadership changes. If the WNBA continued spiraling, what made the situation? Even more telling was how Silver handled the press afterward. When asked directly if he still had full confidence in Engelbert, he avoided a yes or no answer. Instead, he emphasized partnership, saying, "We're all working toward the same goal." That choice of words spoke volumes. Silver never fully endorsed her. He simply included her in a collective effort, implying that she was no longer leading it. For a commissioner who values precision, that omission was intentional. It was the quiet moment that confirmed Silver's takeover wasn't temporary. The reaction inside the WNBA was divided. Some front office figures tried to interpret his comments as reassurance. Others, especially player representatives, saw it as validation, a signal that their concerns were finally being heard at the highest level. To them, Silver's statement wasn't about damage control. It was about accountability, and it meant Engelbert's grip on power was slipping fast. Engelbert, however, seemed unaware of how much ground she had lost. Sources close to her office claimed she viewed Silver's remarks as constructive support, not criticism. That misreading only deepened the perception that she was out of touch with reality. By failing to recognize the message behind Silver's words, she showed the same disconnect that had led players to turn against her in the first place. In the days that followed, media outlets described the dynamic as a tale of two commissioners. One was calm, respected, and methodical. The other defensive and cornered. Silver's calculated praise wasn't just a statement of diplomacy. It was a public reminder of who really held the power. The WNBA might still have Engelbert's name on the door, but everyone could see whose shadow she now operated under. If there's one person holding the WNBA together right now, it's Caitlyn Clark. Her impact on the league has been undeniable. Ticket sales skyrocketed. Merchandise flew off shelves, and games featuring her broke multiple attendance and viewership records. But her rise also exposed the cracks that had been forming under Cathy Engelbert's leadership. Clark wasn't just a basketball phenom. She became the measuring stick for how the league treated its stars. And when fans saw how poorly she was protected, promoted, and respected, they started to question whether Engelbert truly understood the value of her biggest asset. The tension surrounding Clark reached its peak during the Olympic team controversy. When she was left off the roster, outrage spread across social media and talk shows. Many saw it as a reflection of the league's internal bias, a culture that punished popularity instead of embracing it. Engelbert's refusal to address the backlash only made things worse. She had an opportunity to unite fans and players by supporting one of the most marketable athletes in women's sports history. But instead, her silence widened the divide. That moment didn't just alienate fans, it damaged the league's credibility at a time when it needed unity the most. Adam Silver understood what was at stake. To him, Caitlyn Clark represented more than ratings. She was proof that women's basketball could thrive when given the right platform. Her success was the blueprint for the league's future, and losing her enthusiasm could cripple years of progress. Behind the scenes, Silver reportedly urged league executives to capitalize on Clark's influence while maintaining player harmony. But Engelbert's approach was reactive, not proactive. She treated Clark's fame like a PR challenge, instead of an opportunity to transform the league's image. That miscalculation rippled through. Every level of the WNBA sponsors began redirecting resources to Clark-specific promotions, bypassing the league's central marketing team. Media outlets prioritized Clark's games, sometimes even over the finals. It was clear fans cared about her story more than the commissioner's narrative. The WNBA was thriving because of Clark, not because of its leadership. And the more that became obvious, the more it embarrassed Engelbert's administration. Silver, meanwhile, seized the moment to highlight what effective leadership looked like. He publicly praised Clark's professionalism, noting how her arrival had elevated the game for everyone. That statement wasn't just a compliment. It was a subtle jab at the WNBA's inability to support her. In doing so, he reinforced a growing sentiment that the NBA's involvement was necessary for the league to reach its potential. The Caitlyn Clark effect didn't just boost numbers, it revealed the leadership vacuum at the top. Engelbert's disconnect had turned inspiration into instability. And now the future of the WNBA depended on whether Adam Silver could protect its brightest star while rebuilding the trust she had unintentionally exposed as broken. As the league's turmoil deepened, whispers began to spread across front offices and media circles. Cathy Engelbert might not survive this storm, according to multiple insider reports. Senior figures within the NBA were quietly discussing contingency plans for her potential removal. Officially, the league denied it. Unofficially, the conversations were very real. Adam Silver had become increasingly frustrated by Engelbert's inability to stabilize her players, repair public trust, or deliver clear progress in negotiations. The question wasn't if she would step down, it was when and how to make it happen without sparking further chaos behind the scenes. Sources claimed the NBA had assembled a small crisis advisory group. Working alongside PR consultants and labor lawyers, their task was simple: evaluate the legal and financial implications of Engelbert's departure. The fact that such a group even existed told insiders everything they needed to know. Silver wasn't just monitoring the WNBA anymore, he was preparing to intervene directly. Reports indicated that several owners supported the idea, seeing it as the only way to restore confidence before the next media rights cycle began. Meanwhile, Engelbert's relationship with players had completely broken down. Communication between her office and the union had gone silent, and even team executives were struggling to get clear answers. One GM described the league's leadership as paralyzed. Sponsors were anxious, networks were pressing for assurances, and player representatives were growing impatient. Every sign pointed to a leadership collapse, and the NBA's silence became louder with each passing week. What made matters worse was the timing. The WNBA was approaching its new $2.2 billion media deal, a deal that could secure its long-term financial stability if handled correctly. But broadcasters were hesitant to commit fully under Engelbert's leadership. The fear was simple: another public relations meltdown could sink their investment. That concern gave Adam Silver more leverage than ever before. His reputation as a steady, respected leader stood in stark contrast to Engelbert's embattled image. The NBA had credibility. The WNBA didn't, and Silver knew it. Rumors of a forced resignation began to swirl. Some insiders suggested she might be offered a quiet exit package, framed as a strategic transition. Others believed she would be pressured into resigning once the new collective bargaining agreement was finalized. Either way, it was clear that the NBA was no longer willing to let her mistakes define the league's future. Even players started speaking out more boldly on social media. dropping cryptic messages about change coming soon. By early reports, Engelbert was aware of the speculation but refused to acknowledge it publicly. Still, her absence from several major meetings only fueled the narrative that she was being phased out. For years, she had been the face of the WNBA's growth era. Now, she was becoming the symbol of its decline. And with every rumor, one truth grew clearer. Adam Silver was no longer just saving the league. He was preparing to replace its leader. As October crept closer, the atmosphere around the WNBA grew darker with every passing day. The Players' Union had already made its stance clear. Without genuine reform and accountability, there would be no deal. The collective bargaining agreement, once set to run through had been shortened by the union's opt-out, expiring on October 31st, 2025. A date that now felt more like a countdown to disaster than a negotiation milestone. Behind the scenes, league officials described the mood as tense and unsteady. It wasn't just about contracts anymore. It was about survival. Adam Silver knew what a lockout could do. He'd seen the NBA's reputation take a hit during past shutdowns, and he understood that the WNBA, still in a fragile growth phase, might not recover from one. That's why he started holding closed-door sessions with major stakeholders, urging cooperation while quietly mapping out contingencies. The NBA's involvement was no longer optional. It was the only thing keeping the league from imploding. Silver's influence had become so strong that insiders began referring to him as the Shadow Commissioner. Every public statement, every league update, every rumor now carried his fingerprints. Cathy Engelbert, meanwhile, was running out of allies. Her inner circle had shrunk, and her communication with players was practically non-existent. The same executives who once defended her were now distancing themselves, preparing for whatever came next. Sponsors and media partners began pressing for clarity. Was Engelbert staying or stepping aside? The silence from the league office only deepened the uncertainty. To the public, it looked like a leadership vacuum. To those in the know, it was a power shift already underway. What made this deadline especially haunting was how symbolic it felt. Halloween, the night of masks, shadows, and revelation, had become the day of reckoning for a league haunted by its own mismanagement. Social media buzzed with speculation about whether the WNBA would announce Engelbert's resignation or extend the CBA under new oversight. Players kept their statements vague but telling, with some posting cryptic messages about change being overdue. Even Caitlyn Clark, who had stayed mostly quiet throughout the crisis, subtly fueled curiosity with a single comment: "We just want a league worth fighting for." By mid, it was clear that something major was coming. Either the WNBA would enter its next chapter with renewed strength under Silver's guidance, or it would plunge into the lockout that everyone feared. Every negotiation session felt like the calm before a storm. Silver's team pushed for compromise, while the players demanded transparency and leadership reform. One insider summed it up best: "It's not just about paychecks, it's about who's really in charge of women's basketball." As the Halloween deadline loomed, one truth echoed across both leagues. The WNBA's survival now depended entirely on the man who never planned to run it, Adam Silver. And whether he liked it or not, saving it might mean taking it over completely. As the WNBA teeters on the edge of its most critical moment, one reality has become impossible to ignore. Adam Silver is no longer just watching. He's leading the rescue. What began as quiet frustration turned into a full-scale intervention that exposed everything wrong with Cathy Engelbert's leadership. The players have spoken, the fans have noticed, and now the future of the league depends on decisions made in the coming weeks. A lockout could erase years of progress, but a new direction under Silver's steady hand might finally unlock the league's full potential. The question now isn't whether he can save the WNBA, it's whether he's willing to rebuild it from the ground up. Because if this Halloween deadline brings no resolution, the next headline won't be about panic or politics. It'll be about the league that couldn't save itself in time.